Hi, I'm Jason. Good morning. We're going to take a look at the theme of fasting for the next 2 Sundays, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this first section, so I'm going to make it quick. Have you ever fasted? Do you fast? Do you know what the word means? Do you know why people do it? One of the reasons why I don't really want to take a lot of time on it this morning is I think in our culture we have gotten addicted to learning information about a topic as opposed to experiencing the topic. So let me just say to you, if you are interested in fasting, I would encourage you to fast. More so than if you're interested in fasting, listen to more teachings about fasting. It's important to look at the context and the history of a word and a concept. Very, very important to study about it, to prepare yourself both physically and spiritually for it. But nothing really replaces experiencing it. So if you're interested in fasting, I hope that what I'm about to say is helpful, but I really want to just encourage you to participate in fasting. But really, what is fasting? I don't want to get into all the definition on all the nitpicky things of what you should do and should eat and not eat and those kinds of things. I really want to maybe have us take a quick look at why people fast. And the first one that I just want to, this is kind of an oversimplification, but I think sometimes people fast because of this hope to have a connection with God. I believe that God is everywhere and in everything, but I think it's kind of an oversimplified idea that helps carry the idea to say, we think of God as being up, or if there is an arrow that's associated with which direction God is, even though God's everywhere, this upward category. We speak in those terms a lot in the Heart Church family, went up, in, and out. But more specifically, in my experiences at least, most of the time when people say that they want to fast, they want a connection with God that is kind of in the category of getting something from God, like they want something to happen, and so they fast in hopes that if they fast, God will do the thing that they want, like an extreme version of a petition, an extreme version of a request of God. And I think in the category of fasting and in the category of prayer, we need to realize that fasting and prayer go way beyond just asking God to do something. That is a category, but I would like to encourage us to think past and press past that category. Oftentimes when I've heard people say that they fast, they've prayed and the thing that they wanted to happen didn't happen, so they decided to fast. And there are some biblical examples of that I don't want to get into this morning, and I'm not trying to hold judgment over that position as much as I would like to ask us to think beyond that position. Psalm 16, I'm going to say Psalm 16:5. O Lord, you alone are my portion. In my experiences, the times that I've fasted, in particular an extended fast, I might go into it with something in my mind or something in my heart that I hope gets accomplished through it. But oftentimes, or possibly every time that I have done that, eventually I come to the end of the thing that I'm hoping that happens, and I realize that it is the Lord that I was seeking the whole time. So in my experiences, when I fasted, I might have begun the fast in hopes that God would do something, and then come to realize that it was actually the Lord that I was seeking, not the thing from the Lord that I was seeking. Jesus went through an extended fast, right, in the wilderness early on, really at the very beginning of what we would call his earthly ministry. Or if you want to be nitpicky, you could say it would be right before the beginning of his earthly ministry, but early on in the Gospels. And he's tempted, you might remember this, where he's tempted, and I don't want to get into all the details of the temptation, but I just want to hone in on something that Jesus says, which is a response to the temptation. And it's also a quote from the Old Testament or the Hebrew Scriptures when he says, man does not live on bread alone. Right? Remember this? Man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes out of the mouth of God. So in the midst of the fasting that we know of that Jesus experienced, one of his responses in the midst of that fasting had to do with, it's not bread that we seek, and then the contrast is that it's the word that comes out of the mouth of God. So if anything, if we enter into a fast, if we are looking for something that isn't just the presence of God itself, more specifically, it might be the word of God. And so oftentimes, in my experiences, I oftentimes would go into a fast hoping that God does something or answers something, and then I kind of get at the end of that and I realize it's really just the presence of God, or maybe you could say the word of God that I'm really seeking. Or another way to say it is, oftentimes we go seeking the hand of God only to realize that what we were really seeking is the face of God. Do you know that feeling? You enter into prayer or you enter into fasting, hope that God would give you something, right? The hand of God or the hands of God would give you something. You came, or I came, or we came initially seeking the hand of God, and we finally get to the end of that and we realize what we were really seeking the whole time is the face of God. There's a pastor that has helped shape me for the last 24 years or so named Tony Evans. And he said something to the effect of, the question regarding fasting is, are you willing, let me see if I can write this here. And I'm going on memory here, so I'm not going to put quotes, but it's as close as I can get. Are you willing to give up that which gratifies the body? Hopefully you can still see this. In order to receive that which, and I can't remember if he says that which satisfies the spirit, or if he said fulfills the spirit, or something like that. But you kind of get the essence of this, right? Are you at the heart of fasting? One of the things I think would be, are you willing to give up that which gratifies the body in order to receive that which satisfies the spirit or feeds the spirit? You get that, right? You know that feeling. So hopefully we wouldn't enter into fasting just so we could get something that gratifies the body, namely like a desire that we would have or a hope that we'd have, even if that hope is really good, right? Even if that thing that we would get from the hand of God is really good, I hope that we would get to the point that we actually realize what we're really, really, really seeking is the face of God, or that which satisfies our spirit. So I'm about to erase this, but note takers, maybe write down that. Are you willing to give up that which satisfies the body in order to receive that which, or gratifies the body in order to receive that which satisfies the spirit or fulfills the spirit, or something to that effect? So I think that there's a whole category about fasting that is in the up category. Namely, we seek God, thinking at the beginning of that fast, oftentimes, or at least in my experience, that we are seeking the hand of God, only to realize really, really what we're seeking is the face of God. To say that which reflects Psalm 16, you alone are my portion, Lord. So I hope, if not just that you're watching this and that you would learn something about fasting, but that you would experience that you would fast and you would realize this to be true. So there's the up. And then the next is in. There's something that happens inside of us when we fast. There's something that happens inside of our physical bodies, and there's something that happens inside of our spirits. There's something that happens within. And so even though oftentimes the fasting seems to be related to something external, we think, We come to find out that there's so much going on inside of us, and maybe that's what's really happening. And I want to kind of equate that to this expectation that I've had in the past, where I entered into the fast in order to receive something from the hand of God, but came to realize I was really seeking the face of God. That oftentimes happens within my spirit and body as well, as I kind of expect a certain thing that maybe is related. It's like what is that feeling going to be in my body, and what's that thing I'm going to feel in my spirit? And at least in my experience, oftentimes what happens is I realize that this God that I've been seeking out there and up there somewhere has been waiting in here the whole time. I think that there's something about this in category that we realize through fasting, possibly through fasting in a way that isn't experienced any other way, where we can sense the presence of God inside of us. We know this to be true in and through Christ, but oftentimes we don't experience it to be true, or we don't feel that it's true in the same way that we feel that it's true in fasting. I don't need food, God, I need you. The food is not the thing that satisfies me. It is you. And I come to seek you wherever you are. And in the midst of that seeking, we come to find that presence is inside of us. And we know this as a promise, right? The deposit of the Spirit of God in us. I also think that this has some effect on our relationships with the people in our community. So not just fasting affecting the inside of us, but also affecting the way that we see the people closest to us. I think that that's an important note. And I think that another one that I wanted to point out is the out category. In the midst of the fasting and all the mysterious things that go beyond anything that I'm going to say right now, we have these experiences where we thought we were seeking the hand of God, but really we were seeking the face of God. And we thought we were trying to find God somewhere out there, but actually we found the presence of God somewhere in here. And I think when we fast, we also start to notice people outside, or you might even just say other people outside of the community that we're in, or outside of the bubble that we're in, outside of our favorite people that we hang out with and that we know more intimately. And this might be one of the most obvious results of fasting, but it took me years to really come to a place that it felt like a really deep part of fasting. And that is when I started to remember, in the midst of not eating, and again, I don't want to, in this particular teaching, get into the rules. I'd love for you to be set free from that if you're a rules person, to be set free from, well, am I allowed to eat this kind of food? Am I allowed to drink this kind of stuff? Is it water only? Are you allowed to have any water? Please be set free from that and realize that that is not at the heart of fasting. But I came to realize in the midst of fasting, beyond that I thought I was seeking the hand of God, but really the face of God, beyond trying to find where God was, realizing that God is in me. Possibly the most obvious thing, but took me years to get to, was that other people in the world don't have enough food. And so one of the most obvious things really for me became one of the last things I thought of. It started with, all right, Lord, I'm going to pray for something or someone, and I'm really hoping that you'll do this thing. Oh, it's really not about God doing this thing. It's about the presence and face of God. And God is right here in my midst, and God alone is my portion. And when I'm hungry, I can say, God, we don't live on bread alone, but every word that comes from your mouth, and I am willing to give up something that gratifies my body in order to receive something that satisfies my soul or my spirit. And then, oh yeah, there are hungry people in the world. And so I think one of the deepest aspects of prayer has nothing to do with something that we would receive. It has to do with empathizing with and being in solidarity with those who are lacking. And so instead of all the rules, am I allowed to do this? Do you have to do this? Can you do this? What if you fast and come to the place where you realize that it's the presence of God you're seeking, and that presence is within you? And oh yeah, there are people in the world that are lacking food, are lacking water, are lacking justice, are lacking place. And that's actually what I want to talk about next week. So if you want to read ahead, we've mentioned this a couple times over the last few Sundays, but there's a section in the book of Isaiah, chapter 58, that some Bibles have a subtitle, True Fasting. And so maybe this week you want to fast. Maybe you want to skip a meal. Maybe you want to skip a day's worth of meals. Or maybe you just want to forfeit something that you know in the essence of kind of your, like, if you're really honest with your feelings, if you were to give up that thing, it would be fasting. It could be an episode of a show. It could be one particular kind of meal. It could be just one thing or set of things that, if you're honest with yourself, it's just about gratifying your body and making your body temporarily happy about something. Maybe just give up that for a little bit, and in the midst of the giving up of that, maybe come to the place where you go, oh, there are people who don't have things. There are people that are lacking. There are people without. So my sisters and my brothers, would you consider fasting something? This is free. There's freedom in this. It's not about rules. And would you consider reading Isaiah chapter 58 so that next Sunday we can get to what at least Isaiah refers to as true fasting, that has something to do with the actions after we realize there are those without. And so if you decide to do this, may you experience not just the hand of God, but the face of God. And as you're trying to find where in the world the presence of God dwells, may you come to realize and believe that that place is within you. And may you realize and remember and be reawakened to this reality that there are many, many, many people in the world that are lacking in so many ways. They're lacking food, they're lacking water, they're lacking justice, they're lacking equality, and so much more. And would you be open to God teaching you in the midst of realizing that God's presence is within you? Would you be open to God teaching you what actions to take based on that knowledge and based on that reawakening within you? My sisters and my brothers, this isn't a test. And so whether you fast this week or whether you don't, whether you come to some of these same conclusions that I've come to or whether you don't, may you believe that the presence of God is already within you. And may you remember that there are people without. And may you be open to doing something about it. And may the Lord bless you and keep you and be gracious to you and turn his face towards you and shine his light on you and grant you with peace.